What's going on, folks? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the second album by the rock band Sugar Ray, and this album is called Floored. This came out in the summer of 1997. It was kind of a pretty big project just because of the fact of the hit single Fly, which actually didn't hit number one on the Billboard 100 because it didn't have a single release. But the thing about it was, this kind of helped usher along a number of genres, kind of one of which is the surprising thing. I've owned this album for a while, but didn't realize as heavily the fact that this was kind of new metal. And that's kind of the concept on here. It's kind of ska metal, funk metal, and new metal and some of that type stuff. But it helped usher along a number of things. Like it kind of helped promote like the new metal stuff that Limp Bizkit and Deftones were kind of doing in 1997. But it also helped push forth in a lot of ways some pop rock that kind of would later go on to happen with like Smash Mouth and Marcy Playground and like Third Eye Blind and The Offspring and some of those type bands that were popular between like about 1997 and 2000, 2001 or so. So that's kind of the concept there. I kind of feel like, I mean, this is not so much a pop metal project. It's kind of, I mean, it has some heavy riffs on here. The song Fly is kind of just the only real song that is like that on this album. But the next album they would do in 1999, they realized that their fans liked the style of Fly with Super Cat and the other version, so they continued that style on 1459 from 1999 and stuff. So that's kind of the concept. But originally around this time, it was almost seen kind of similar to Smash Mouth in 1997 with their Walking on the Sun song, how that was that was basically like the only hit off that album damn near. That's kind of what happened with this project. I do really like the second single RPM, but I just don't know how often it gets played. I think I was going to review this album back in 2016 when I was reviewing a bunch of new metal, and I think because I couldn't get into like RPM as much back in 2016, I just didn't review it back then. But lo and behold, 7 years later, I have easily like this song now. So I just would have to say, yeah, this is an easy review. This is a kick-ass project, and it just needs to be put up just to be able to showcase that. So to talk about the singles from this project, the first single is Fly, and this is like a real kind of interesting pop rock song. This is like I said, similar to stuff that was kind of on the radio around this time. Songs like Hey Now You're an All-Star by songs like All Star by Smash Mouth and Walking on the Sun by Smash Mouth and like Third Eye Blind has some hits like that, and The Offspring and those type groups. Just stuff that you would have heard between like 97 and 2000. That's about the sort of stuff, this kind of more pop rock, kind of hooky type stuff, which is not necessarily like punk rock like Green Day and some of those type groups and Weezer and some of that, but it's just kind of more in like a, I mean, I want to say it still retains the punk, but it's just kind of like if Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit were to kind of have like the highlights in his hair and be a lot more popish and a little bit more commercial. You can tell right by the album cover from Floor, this project, that's kind of the context of what it is. But it's just kind of unfortunate there's not more songs like Fly. But yeah, I just would have to say it's just I look at like Sugar Ray is kind of like, at least this song Fly is like a more commercial version of the stuff that Limp Bizkit was kind of doing. But that's just kind of the concept. This is the only song like it. I do prefer the song Fly with Super Cat on there. That one's just a lot hookier and a little bit more infectious than the regular version of Fly that does not have Super Cat on there. I just kind of feel like there's something about his reggaeton kind of vocals on the song that kind of help give it some extra emphasis. And it's just kind of a weird amalgamation to kind of pair up reggae with like pop rock. And I feel like that kind of works actually rather well. It's probably a hit that a lot of y'all have probably heard across the past several years. It was a staple of the 90s and the early 2000s and stuff. So it's definitely a highlight. Just a nice overall kind of breezy, kind of early summer, spring kind of song. It has that kind of mellow kind of energy about it, but it's just a nice kind of vibe as far as like a decent little spring and summer bop in a lot of ways. And the second single is RPM. Now, this is definitely a new metal song. This is one that reminds me of something that Limp Bizkit would do. Definitely something across like 1999 with Significant Other and then 1997 with $3 Bill, y'all. Definitely really feels like Limp Bizkit, really feels like some folks like Crazy Town and some of them that did that sort of stuff. I just was not wholesomely aware that Sugar Ray attempted this style and actually did it pretty damn well. Apparently, Mark McGrath, the lead singer, of Sugar Ray wanted to do more songs like this song as opposed to more songs like Flies. And I guess he walked out. I guess he walked out on the band at one point because they wanted to do more songs like Fly, but he didn't want to. But it's just kind of the concept about it. It is a pretty nice hit. It's definitely like a nice backyard party kind of thumper of an energy. It really feels like a new metal song like Limp Bizkit's "Rollin'" from Chocolate Starfish and some of those type moments. Definitely has some heavy riffs in here. It's just kind of, it's nothing like Fly. This is a lot more just of like a boiler and more metal sounding. So that's kind of the concept about it. But I do like it as like a nice kind of bubbler as far as like a party starting. But they needed more hits. I think everyone did want more songs like Fly, but it's just too bad that RPM didn't catch on, because this is a quality hit and the hook is pretty catchy too. It's definitely a nice one. Definitely reminds me of something that's straight ripped out of the mid 90s when new metal was kind of bubbling. So this is kind of the thing. So, but to talk about the songs that I recommend to you, there's 13 songs on here, but I'm going to count it as 12 just because I don't want to really knock like the original version of Fly, because I do like at least one version of the song. So I'm just going to assume that there's 12 songs on here and say I just like 7 songs out of 12. So that's kind of the concept. But the 7 songs out of 12 I recommend to you would be RPM, Invisible, Breathe, Anyone, Fly, American Pig, and Right Direction. Now, the thing about most of these is a lot of these are just kind of, the thing about a lot of these is they're pretty much like the new metal songs. I mean, they do try like some funk metal and some other stuff, but I feel like some of these that are kind of a lot more, I don't really know the genre for it. I don't know if it's ska, but I don't feel like Speed Home California really feels like ska. I didn't really enjoy that one. I didn't really enjoy kind of like the interlude type vibes of High Anxiety, and I didn't really like the pretty terrible singing on Stand and Deliver. That was just a really bad one. I think that was like a cover song, but I didn't enjoy that. So there just were some moments to talk about some of the ones I didn't like. And Cash was just too short a song. I didn't like the production on that one. So there's just some ones that kind of have some awkward productions on here. But I feel like when they do the new metal stuff, like the song, like so I feel like the energy on Anyone is very similar to RPM, has that same kind of bubbler, but then the riffs start getting a lot catchier later and that sort of energy. I definitely feel like that's a nice one. And then like American Pig kind of does that too. So those are like some ones that kind of have like some ravenous kind of more, I feel like Anyone and American Pig kind of have like some bubbler kind of energy, but then the riffs start getting crazy later on. They kind of start being manic, but these are definitely some new metal songs. I just feel like the energy behind them is pretty ravenous. I definitely like that. It's interesting to kind of see Sugar Ray mesh with that, just because I was more, a lot of the songs I've heard nowadays are the ones off of 1459. So to hear some of these, none of these really had like any chart potential, but I wonder if they could have, because Limp Bizkit was pretty good at making new metal songs chart, but it just feels like these are just kind of all album cuts. I mean, apart from Fly, I can see why some folks would say that this album's just a one-hit wonder, just because RPM, I feel like most folks probably don't even know that song because it didn't chart high enough to really get the airplay, but it does have a great hook, and there's just a lot of new metal songs on here that are just really something that feels like something Limp Bizkit would do, and Deftones and some of them. And that's definitely how I feel about Anyone, an American Pig, and Invisible. That has like a pretty I feel like Invisible is another new metal type song that just has like a kind of glaring energy about it. That one's definitely kind of a glare. It's almost like in Korn's direction. It's a little bit kind of like more creepy sounding and glary, but I feel like it still kind of retains that new metal kind of energy. It just really kind of feels like hazy summer tunes for the most part. Just a lot of kind of Limp Bizkit, Kid Rock, Deftones kind of energy throughout this project. Definitely songs like Right Direction, Breathe, yeah, Right Direction, Breathe, RPM, Anyone, and American Pig all kind of retain that style. So the only real ones, and then I would say Invisible does too. So basically, the only real song on this project that I recommend to you that does not have some sort of thumping and kind of pretty rickety, kind of shrill, kind of just headbanging kind of new metal energy is just Fly. So that, other than that, these are just some nice ones with some pretty rock solid production that'll take you back to 1997 with Deftones and Korn and Limp Bizkit and other new metal bands around that time. Can't think of some of them, but just folks like that. Even I would say possibly Slipknot. If I mean, it's not quite as crazy as Slipknot, but definitely in the direction as far as stuff for 1997, because this was not quite where new metal had like exploded on the scene with like songs like Nookie and songs like Ba with the Ba and that type of stuff. So it hadn't quite reached like its apex, but it was kind of in the bubbling stages. It was kind of in its bubbling stages. It's just interesting kind of see how that context turned out in the early days of nu metal, seeing what like Sugar Ray wanted to do with it. And in some cases, I would feel like Sugar Ray was kind of an originator of that style. I mean, they may not have been like the complete exact first person to do it. I think maybe that was Sepultura that kind of helped cap that off in some ways, but they're definitely one of the earliest ones to kind of do nu metal and such. It definitely was there and poignantly there in 1997, but just to kind of say that's interesting that they did it. So, yeah, I'm gonna score this album me liking 7 songs out of 12. I'm gonna go ahead and give this album just like either a 6.75 or a 7 out of 10. I'm gonna give it a 6.75 out of 10 just because I feel like I did like this album, but unless I feel like this is kind of more hardcore metal in a lot of senses. Like there may be a lot of folks who know about the song Fly, and very minorly possible that they know about RPM. I feel like there's not a lot to talk about on this project in terms of word of mouth for folks that are not like elitists or zealots about the kind of genre and that type of stuff. So when you get, unless you're talking about like hardcore and that type of stuff, it's not really an album that's that much of gab like type stuff and gossip. So I just would have to say, but it does serve its purpose. Like Fly is definitely an excellent kind of commercial rap, or Fly is definitely an excellent commercial rock type song. And I just would have to say that it probably needed at least one more song like that to help sell some copies. But this album did at least go double platinum, so that's pretty good. But 6.75 out of 10. So yeah, just apart from like some awkward kind of productions and some bad singing in some cases that just kind of happen, I feel like this is an overly kind of stellar project in most senses. It's just kind of aloof and kind of like its package as far as how many folks would know or care to know about it, but it is good. And it just kind of comes off, it has the allure or the mirage of thinking that it's a one hit wonder album, but it's really not. So the social score, as a result of that, I'm just going to give the social score a 5 out of 10 because Fly was definitely popular, but RPM is just not overtly talked about, and it just doesn't really have anything else anywhere near that. And it's just kind of, I mean, I've owned this album for over 6 or 7 years, I just have never referred back to it because I just couldn't. I just didn't like the concept of only liking Fly. But now that I've learned about it and know about it, I can definitely say that this is a worthy purchase. It's just kind of the concept that if you're just looking for the hits, you may be disappointed because it just only really has Fly and briefly RPM. But it is quality and it does have some good nu metal on here. So this is kind of the thing. So in terms of the future, Sugar Ray dropped an album like in 2019 or something, but their time was kind of like in the mid 90s and early 2000s. So it's been a while. That's kind of the concept. But I do like the thing about this project. It is kind of a worthwhile purchase, and I'm glad for like the quality of it.